Okay, we are doing an overview of the Bible in a year. And we're starting to get pretty close to about halfway there, and we're about halfway through the Bible physically. And right now we are in the 5 books that they call the poetry books in the Old Testament. And those poetry books are the book of Job, it's the book of Psalms, and the book of Psalms has 5 books. So it's 150 chapters broken into 5 books. So you have the book of Job, you have the book of Psalms, you have the book of Proverbs, you have the book of Ecclesiastes, and now you have the book of what's called the Song of Songs. Now this is a rather controversial book, actually. And the reason that it's a controversial book is because it's a book about physical love, aka sexual relationships. Well, maybe that's being a little too blunt. It's not really just about sex and sexual relationships. It's about love, attraction in sex. And so that's something that exists from the very beginning of the book. When God creates humanity, when he creates people, when he creates Adam and he creates Eve, and there's attraction there. He is attracted to her. In fact, he's in the garden. He has a lot of things to do. He's got responsibility, work, production. And when the Lord brings him the woman, he is complete and everything is very good. And so all of that is based upon something that God has created in us, this idea of love and attraction, desire, sex. And so that's what the Song of Solomon is about. And because it's about that, well, let's back it up even a little bit more. Who wrote the book of Song of Solomon, or Song of Songs as it's called? Well, we're told that Solomon, keep saying it, I keep giving it away before we go through it. Solomon seems to be the writer of this. The same Solomon as the book of Proverbs, the same Solomon as the book of Ecclesiastes, the same Solomon, the son of David, the same Solomon that got all of this wisdom from God because God just gave it to him as a gift because he was the king. And he asked God, what do you need to be king? What do you want? And he said, I just need to be wise so I can rule these people. And God said, well, because you didn't ask for riches, you didn't ask for the death of your enemies, I'm going to give you prosperity and you're going to have wisdom. So Solomon writes a lot of Proverbs and he writes 1,000 songs. And this song is known as the Song of Songs. So when Jesus is called the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, it's because he is the Lord of Lords. He is the King of Kings. And I guess they started this as the Song of Songs, that there's no song quite like this. And it's a love song. Now, if you listen to the radio, you listen on your phone, you listen on your feed, you listen on Spotify, it's amazing the number of songs that we listen to that are love songs, that are songs of attraction and songs of desire and love, sex, and attraction. And so even today, there are those songs. And so this is one of those. But it's controversial because religious people going all the way back, this is not like something new. This isn't some 21st century debate or 20th century debate. It goes all the way back into the time of Judaism, into the time of the Old Testament world when the song was written. And people are like, I don't know, does a song about love, sex, and attraction, belong in the scripture? Would God give us a book like that? Well, God's the one who gave it to us originally. And so here it is, and all of the controversies that surround it. Some people, because of the controversies that surround it, and they're like, well, would God give us a book about sex? Yes. Yes is the answer. And trying to get rid of that is just another religious activity. So what is the book about? Well, it's sort of an outline of, it's boy meets girl, girl meets boy, and there's some language in that's a little bit odd to us. Let's say this, that the Bible's not PG. This is some pretty graphic stuff here. Some very, very graphic stuff. And the imagery. And because of the graphic imagery and because of the content of the imagery, a lot of people have tried to turn it into an allegory of Christ in the church. Well, that's somewhat reasonable because it says in the book of Ephesians that marriage is a picture of Christ in his church. Well, what happens in marriage? Well, there's fidelity, there's faithfulness, and there's the two becoming one. And so it is with Jesus in the church. There's faithfulness and there's fidelity, and there's us and Jesus, and we're becoming one. So that's good. That works. It's not unusual to find allegory. It's not unusual for there to be symbolism and all of these kinds of things in the writing of the scriptures and the containing of the scriptures. But I'm going to say, and you don't need to say, you can read it, but I think it's difficult to see it any other way. I'm going to say that it's simply that it's a love song. Why would I say that? Well, let's read from the beginning. What it says is Solomon's Song of Songs. And it's a dialogue between her and him and then the other girls that are around. It's kind of fun to watch, really. So this is she, this is her. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for your love is more delightful than wine. Pleasing is the fragrance of your perfumes. Your name is like perfume poured out. No wonder the young women love you. This guy, right? Take me away with you. Let's hurry. Let the king bring me into his chambers. And so this whole story of love, and there's this whole story of the bride, and the whole story of the groom, and the bride wanting the groom, and the groom coming to get her, and then the love that they have for each other, and then there's a wedding, and there's a wedding procession, and all of this that happens with that, and then the bride's fearing, I might lose the groom, I might lose him, and the groom, later on in the book, he's describing her beauty, how beautiful she is, and then we get into the nature of love, human love. And so there she is in verses 1-4. And then there's the friends, the girls, all the girls that are on, all the bridesmaids, all the chatty girls. I hope that's not offensive. It's just the way it is the story here. And we rejoice and we delight with you. We praise your love more than wine. And she, how right they are to adore you. And she talks about herself and she talks about him, and there's this dialogue back and forth going on. And so what does it mean to us? It means a lot to us. This whole idea of love, sex, and attraction. We're living in a time where it's pretty confusing what it's all about. The Pharisees had come to Jesus, and they tried to trap him. And they asked him, because the rabbis would say, you could divorce your wife for any and every reason. And so they came up and they said, Jesus, can you divorce your wife for any and any reason? And Jesus said, well, Moses said that you could give a certificate of divorce. That's in the scripture. You can give a certificate of divorce. And he said, the reason you give a certificate of divorce is because of the hardness of your heart. Now, whose heart is hard? Is it the guy whose heart is hard? Is it the girl whose heart is hard? Somebody's heart is hard. It's just the way it is when divorce happens, and it's a very unfortunate thing. But Jesus said that divorce wasn't something that God had ordained for us, and that's something that he set up from the beginning. Find it in the early chapters of Genesis, where God is encouraging that. In fact, Jesus brings it all the way back, and he says that's not how it was in the beginning. When God created male and female, and for this reason, a man will leave his family, and a woman will leave her family, and the two will become one. So this is God's idea, and it's celebrated. The truth is that biblical marriage is a man and a woman, one man, one woman, over the course of a lifetime. And we know that things break down. We know there's divorce. We know there's tragedy in family and all of that. But there's some really important things in that picture. And then if that's happened to you, then there's forgiveness and there's renewal, and you can start again. But when we start again, let's see if we can't make this one work. It really is God's plan, and it's a celebration of it. And so this Song of Songs, the Song of Solomon, is in fact a celebration of love, sex, and attraction. So we'll continue on, and we're going to do one more summary of the poetry books, and then we will be into a whole new section of books. And it's going to start to get complicated as we try to put it in its place. So bless you guys. Love you. Let's keep moving on and see what we got next.